Hello and welcome back to the Workbench. This is where we discuss ceiling fan history, trivia, and technical information. As always, if you want to learn more and you want to see behind the scenes footage, go to patreon.com/dspiffy. I'll have content up there that you won't be able to find anywhere else. So, let's get into it. We have been working on a 4-part mini-series about Emerson. We talked about the overall timeline, focusing on the fans that originated from the blender fan. We talked about the 1895, which was the first line of fans that Emerson came up with that really deviated from the norm. And today we're going to talk about the second line of fans that Emerson came up with that deviated from the norm, which was the Northwind line of fans. This was Emerson's imported line of fans. So, first let's go back in time, because the Northwind line came out in 1984. But our story starts in 1989, where Emerson's first imported fan shows up in the Sears catalog, which would later be called the LeFan. It is a 3-blade fan with a blender-type switch housing, blender-type blades and brackets, blender canopy, and the motor and lower canopy are all from Weatherite. We have wondered and surmised as to whether or not that fan was wholly imported. My theory is that it was, because we know Emerson was getting other parts from Hong Kong, so it makes sense that maybe they were getting those blades, canopies, blade brackets, switch housings, etc. from Hong Kong, and the whole fan was made from parts in Hong Kong or made in Hong Kong. But we don't know that for sure. The other piece of the puzzle is that similar fans have showed up that were not related to Emerson, like the Sonidair, and like the fans that Sears sold later that had different blades and a more conventional bell canopy. So it's possible that just the motor was imported and the rest of the parts were domestic. Lasco did that famously for several years. The only thing we do know is that 51% of the fan, we'll say, was imported from Hong Kong, the motor and some other associated parts. And that's 79 in the Sears catalog. 1980 is when that fan shows up labeled as the Emerson LeFan. Also significant in 1980, the Sears version has no switch housing. The Emerson version has a switch housing, the Sears version has no switch housing. I don't know why they felt the need to differentiate them. We'll see going forward that a lot of times the fans sold in Sears were different than the fans Emerson sold, so whether that was a Sears decision or an Emerson decision, but they were different that first year. In 1981, again, it was different because the LeFan was no longer offered from the Sears catalog. Instead, in the Sears catalog, they offered 3-blade blenders instead, but the LeFan is still being sold at Emerson dealers. In 1982, the LeFan is back at Sears, also offered in brown with the blender canopy, which I have never seen outside of the Sears catalog. I assume it exists. If anybody's ever seen one, a all-brown LeFan with a blender canopy, not the bell canopy that the non-Emerson version used. Okay, 1983, Emerson discontinues the LeFan. Sears now has the bell canopy version, so it seems like they went straight to the factory on that one. That's 83. And again, 83 is the year the LeFan is discontinued, which brings us right into 84, which is when the Northwind line was introduced. This was Emerson's first fully imported line of fans. And the way that they marketed their fans was all Emerson fans were designed to be premium fans. So basically, if we want to really overgeneralize, there were 2 different markets of fans. There were, and there still are, showroom fan stores like Dan's Fan City, hardware stores that offered fans like Crompton Greaves and the Original and that sort of thing. Just places you knew you went to get a good quality fan. And then discount center fans you'd get from Home Depot, fans you'd get from Lowe's, fans you'd get from Walmart, etc. Encon famously became that. The Moss Caribbean Breeze was probably the very first discount center fan, and of course Moss famously started a lot of stuff there. Anyhow, so Emerson always wanted their fan lines to be in the upper tier. They never wanted to be a discount center fan. They never wanted to be a cheap bargain fan. The Northwind was supposed to be at the very bottom of the showroom line or the quality, fan dealer line. And the 1895 series was supposed to be solidly in the middle. At the time, 1984, they were not trying to offer a top-tier showroom line. And again, they were never trying to offer a bottom of the barrel line. They specifically intended for the Northwind to be like the cheapest thing you could get at a showroom, and you would still expect it to be quality. And the 1895 would be solidly in the middle. You go to a showroom, you get a good quality fan. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles of a Casablanca, but you're still getting a definitively quality fan. So that's 84. And the Northwind line in 84 is Sinlix style spinners, kind of the same spinners that we saw as Gulf Coast or Commander. You know, we've called them a number of things based on what we were found labeled, but I think if I say Sinlix, everybody knows what I'm talking about. As well as relabeled Brone and Alaska products, including Emperors and GE vent fans. Now, I've got a couple Brone GE vent fans up on my channel. I've never seen one labeled Emerson, but I thought it was really surprising and interesting and cool to find out that they were, in fact, labeled as Emerson, including Emperors. I've seen Brone Emperors, did not know that they were sold as Emerson, so that's really cool. That was just 84. I don't know how long those models continued, but I know that's when they were introduced, and I imagine they did not continue for very long because, as you'll see, the lineup changes. So let's get to 85. That's when they introduced the fans that we recognize as the Northwind line. The Panama builder vent, you know, basically the thin vents and with the little Panama thing underneath. The wood housing, you know, we all know the Emerson's wood housing line is pretty iconic. Their huggers, which they called snuggers, all of them are 4-blade in 85. They also offer 42-inch Northwind fans in 85, which are basically builder-looking things with builder vents. I actually think those are kind of cool because they're obviously a step above ordinary builder fans. Huggers, and they also have what we would refer to as CEC-style spinners, the little vented spinners that I love. We saw at Menards, etc. Those were part of the Northwind line in 85. And you don't see any record of the stuff that we saw in 84. 84, that stuff's not in the 85 catalog. Okay, 86, the CEC style spinners are replaced with bottom mount spinners. I've done a video of one of those on my channel. It's a cast bottom mount spinner, very cool. Also, 86 is the introduction of the 56-inch Northwind called the Great Room, and again, it just looks like a 4-blade giant builder fan. I want one, by the way. Other than that, the lineup is the same as 85. Nothing different shows up until 88, when Emerson Northwind fans are found in hardware stores relabeled Crosley, sometimes spelled without the E. And I think that's actually what my Emerson bottom mount spinner is. And I know that my local True Value stocked Crosley rebranded fans. So, but again, the lineup hasn't changed. It's just that they've added that addition of a rebrand in 88. 89 is the next big lineup change. So just to kind of recap, 84, they're introduced. 85 is when what we kind of recognize as the Northwind line is introduced, and then there's minor changes until 89. The Northwind, as we know it, with the skinny vents with the little Panama vent on the bottom, is rebranded as the Northwind Designer, the Northwind Oak, etc., and they're all redone in 5-blade. Keep in mind they were all 4-blade fans up until now. The Designer is available in myriad different colors, and they now offer a model called the Northwind, which has full-size Panama vents like an Encon Monarch. That's 89. The next difference we have is 1991, when the catalog shows a 29-inch Northwind. It's still the Northwind with the Panama vents, and a 36-inch Northwind. The thing that is interesting is that the 29-inch is 5-blade and the 36-inch is 4-blade. I'd actually kind of like to find one of those 36-inch ones, because I don't remember ever seeing a 4-blade only small Northwind, so that's pretty cool. That's only 1 year, though. That's probably why, because in 1992, the 36-inch Northwind is now 5-blade. In 1995, the Designer drops Northwind from its name. It is now just the Designer. Up until then, it was the Northwind Designer. The Northwind Remote is now offered, which is, again, the Panama vent fan, now with a remote option. In 1997, the Northwind Oak, aka the Hardwood, is redesigned. And in the year 2000, the Hardwood is redesigned again. The Designer is redesigned. The Designer remote replaces the Northwind remote. The 52-inch Northwind is redesigned. The 42-inch Northwinds and Snuggers are still all the traditional version as of 1991. And that's as far as I'm going to go for a couple reasons. Because A, I generally stop around the year 2000, and B, I think most of those actually stayed the same for the rest of the Emerson lineup. I know that the Designer was redesigned with the kind of more premium style blade brackets, and that stayed for a while, possibly until the end. The Northwind was redesigned with the kind of ugly modern blade brackets, and I think that stayed till the end. So as far as I know, I don't actually have any 2000s era Emerson catalogs other than a few early ones in which they're all the same. I think those models stayed the same pretty much until the end. Somebody in the comments will probably know more. Again, this series doesn't really go into the 2000s too much. I did think it was interesting that everything was redesigned except for the 42-inch fans, which were still the 1991 version all the way in 2000, and everything else got multiple redesigns through the 90s. And it's interesting that we start talking about the 90s because we're actually going to do a separate video, which is going to be the final part of this 4-part detailed Emerson series, and when we're going to talk about the 90s Emerson lineup, because I get a lot of questions about that, and I think it's worth a video of its own. So look forward to that. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to support our sponsors, you can go to buyfanstick.com, fanstick.biz, lightstick.biz, ricochet.com, and of course the newly introduced fanstickxxx.com. As always, thank you so much for watching. This is also available in podcast form, so if you just want to listen while you're driving, you can go anywhere your podcasts are sold and listen to this podcast series. And as always, please continue to buy Fanstick. Thanks for watching.